To the chief executive of the company that's carrying out the fracking in Lancashire, Francis Egan. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's begin with the why. Caroline Lucas very clearly spells out the why not there. What she says is, why on earth would you develop a new fossil fuel at the very time the planet needs to use less of it?
Well, because natural gas is going to be used in this country for many decades to come. And I think what Caroline Lucas and some other people tend to do is to use a well-worn phrase, is to make the perfect the enemy of the good. Of course, we'd all like not to be using fossil fuels tomorrow, but we also have to heat our homes and heat our businesses and cook our food. And irrespective of how well renewables are doing in the electricity sector, we're going to need natural gas. Natural gas is the lowest CO2 fossil fuel, and surely developing it in this country is better than importing it from the Middle East or even across the Atlantic.
Well, as you know, there are other environmental reasons that you face such a major battle to get this operation underway. Let's begin with one of them, the threat of what are called earthquakes. In other words, the fact that 7 years ago, when you were doing test fracking, there were earthquakes measured on the Richter scale at the most at 2.2. Can you now reassure anybody that those won't happen again or something worse?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it now, that the site that we're operating in Lancashire is probably the most seismically monitored square footage of earth here that we have. We are required to stop injecting high-pressure water if the seismic levels reaches a 0.5 on the Richter scale, and that's way, way below anything anyone could feel, much less do damage or harm.
That is the current regulation, although we know the minister involved recently sent a letter, or was heard to say that if this went okay for a week or two or a month or two, who knows, you could change the regulations and you could ensure that slightly bigger tremors were allowed.
Well, that is in fact the case for other projects. It's not just hydraulic fracturing, but geothermal projects likewise have the same potential risk. And I think the so-called red light in continental Europe is closer to 2.5 or even 2.7.
So you would, as Quadrilla, like the red light, as you put it, the time at which you need to stop injecting that water at high pressure into the rocks, to go up from 0.5 to 2.5 like in the rest of Europe? Well,
we would like it to be safe and demonstrably safe.
What's the answer to the question there?
Well, the answer is whatever level makes it demonstrably safe. 0.5 clearly makes it demonstrably safe.
Do you think 2.5 makes it demonstrably safe?
Well, the Europeans clearly do. We have to see how this works. At 0.5, there is.
In theory, you would like it to be higher.
In theory, we would like it to be at a level which demonstrates safety. That may well be higher.
Now, one other environmental objection you'll be aware of is people say that there is air pollution, not just actually from the chemicals used in the process, but also from the huge amount of diesel-powered lorries that come into the area. But this was exposed in a government report, wasn't it, which was conveniently released only days after you'd been given your licence.
Well, I'll leave the government speak for their own reports, but any form of industrial activity, be it a wind farm, a solar farm or a fracking site, is going to require lorries to come in. Over time, maybe those lorries will be produced fueled by natural gas if we can extract it from Lancashire. But
to be clear, you'll know that the report didn't just focus on lorries, it focused on experience from America and evidence in America that there is pollution from the chemicals used in the fracking process itself.
Well, I'm not sure it did focus on evidence. I haven't got the report in front of me, but a lot of these reports focus on anecdotes and not evidence.
Oh, well, this is not. This is the Air Quality Expert Group, commissioned by the government. It's a few years old now, 2015. Critics of fracking say the situation has got worse and not better.
Well, I guess the critics are referring to the US, and again, I haven't seen the data that demonstrates that it's got worse or not better. I can tell you that the US are actually reducing their CO2 emissions by replacing coal with natural gas, and frankly, the exact opposite is happening in the UK.
Local people say they're being used as guinea pigs.
Well, I think that's ridiculous.
Why?
Because it's...
Would you live there?
I already live there. I work there.
How close are you to the site?
I'm on the site practically every week.
How close is your home?
My house is in Manchester. The site's in Lancashire.
Yeah, so it's quite a long way.
Well, but I think it is ridiculous.
You're talking to a boy from the area. I know that's quite a long way away. So would you be prepared to have a house on the site to bring your children breathing the air there?
Of course. There's absolutely no problem with living near the site. This is the most monitored piece of earth that there is in an oil and gas site, or frankly any other site. And there's no data to support the assertion that there are difficulties with living near the site.
Wouldn't the candid thing to say to people locally, to say this: look, This is a major industrial process, and like any big factory, any big outlet, of course there are all sorts of downsides to having that in your area, but in the end we're about making money and creating jobs, and we think the balance means we should go ahead. Wouldn't that be frankly a more candid way of putting the whole thing?
Well, to be honest, I don't know how much more candid we could be. We put all the environmental and every other piece of data that we measure at the site on an e-portal, and every regulator measures it. We've had 16 visits from the Environment Agency in a little over 12 months, and they have found no major issues with this.
Rather briefly, if you would, one sentence if you would. If this goes well, as you obviously hope it will, how big will this industry be?
It'll be huge.
Go on, millions of pounds, numbers of jobs?
Well, it'll be thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs possibly, but most importantly, it'll be a source of gas for the UK and stop us importing it.
Francis Egan, Chief Executive of Quadrilla, thank you.